I just have a short presentation about Tatiana, which I briefly discussed before, this trace analysis tool for interaction analysts. So it's a researcher tool, so it's not a teacher tool, it's not a tool for students, it's a tool for researchers that are interested in understanding the collaborative processes, okay? Remember I talked every time about the process in different research studies that I mentioned, and Tatiana allows you to replay the learning process. Okay, so it's got to be rebooted. So usually Tatiana helps the researcher. The researcher does the analyses, and Tatiana is a kind of a system that helps the researcher to save time, okay, and to keep the analyses. Because what we're interested, we're getting to a point in the community, in the CSCL community, where we should start sharing. Okay, it's oftentimes the case where people will do analyses and they'll write up a paper or they'll have a beautiful PowerPoint presentation and they will talk about it with their colleagues, but then it will sort of end there. And what Tatiana allows you to do is share analytical frameworks. I could, if Nancy has Tatiana installed on her machine and I have Tatiana installed on my machine, we can elaborate analytical frameworks together, and I can send it to Nancy. She can work on it, send it back to me. I can use that framework to work on a collaborative interaction. I can annotate it and code it, and then I can say, well, Nancy, what do you think about what I did? Here, look, I'll send it to you. And she'll see, well, Chris coded this as explanation, she coded this as knowledge building, and she coded this as argumentation, or maybe this is both argumentation and knowledge building. So what does she think about it? She works on it and sends it back to me, and then I create visualizations, and then we can share in that way. And it's important for the community now to be at that point where we can begin sharing. Okay, now let's see, I want to go quickly through here to get to the part of my talk. I'm not sure if I know how to, okay, oh, I guess I see. So before I talk about Tatiana in particular, I just wanted to quickly go through a couple of the tools that exist that other people have developed. And the first one is a tool called Colat, which is developed by some Greek researchers. And this is a tool that's actually based on activity theory, okay, coming out of Russian psychology and worked a lot in Finland by Yrjö Engelström and Michael Cole in the United States. And this is an interesting case too that is sometimes gives rise to a little bit of the contradictions that we were mentioning between theory and methods. Okay, because here you see this is actually a study of where students were going into a museum and looking at artwork and talking about it. Okay. And the reason why there's activity theory, I'm not sure if you know about activity theory, I don't have a time to present it, but we think about activity, activity theory has an activity, actions, and operations. So there are different types of levels of ways of looking at an activity. And so in this tool, activities are here, these are actions, and these are low-level operations. And so here, if you look, you can see that I think they have PDA devices too that they're using to write down what they're seeing in the museum. So they're asking for, they're doing particular operations on the PD device, and that's recorded here. So this whole thing is being replayed, and you can see as the video progresses, then this line, we're right here at this particular operation. Okay, so it's a way of looking at this activity through a particular theoretical lens. But you're obligated to use activity theory, okay, because that's the way the tool is set up. So it's kind of hardwired into the tool. Now, interestingly, there's a researcher group that used this tool but didn't use use activity theory. They just say, okay, we don't care if it's activity, operation, or action. They just use a different kind of analytical framework that they kind of plugged in there. But so they, you know, changed the tool. It wasn't initially worked like that, but they were able to, you know, transform it. But this can be difficult. So the next tool is a tool coming out of Nottingham called the Replayer. And you can, already they need 4 screens. Okay, it's very, very complicated. This is also kind of mobile devices. You have 2 videos where somebody is using navigating in the city. This is a bigger picture. I'm not exactly sure what all the screens mean, but this is a visual representation. This is log data. This is maybe a Google Earth map view with different information on it, and it's all synchronized together. And it's important for the researcher to have all this information synchronized in order to understand what's happening. But you can see how complicated it can get. This one is even maybe more complicated, you might think, in a symbolic way. This is actually about driving a car. Okay, it's called Abstract, developed in France. And for people doing research in ergonomics, it's called abstract because there are different levels of abstraction. This is a representation of passing on a freeway. So at the level of the circles, you have low-level operations, like looking in your rearview mirror, like putting on your blinker, like maybe accelerating the car, and turning the steering wheel a little bit. And on this level, you have a little bit of higher level operations. You might have, you know, actually turning could be described as a way of putting together some low-level operations, okay, turning the car. And so the interest of this type of representation allows the ergonomist to have a kind of a taxonomy of different ways. For example, if we take the example of passing on a freeway, what do drivers do when they pass? Okay, there might be different strategies for passing. Okay, and you can see them in this type of representation. There's a lot more I could say about that, but we already saw an example of this. This is Drew. I'll be giving a more in-detail presentation of this when I talk about argumentation on Tuesday.
Yeah,
okay.
Tuesday next week,
Okay.
lunchtime. So if you can come, Tuesday with 12:45 in this room.
Okay, so I'll be describing the theoretical underpinnings of Drew, which is a dialogical reasoning educational web tool. Here you only see the chat and the text writer. It also has argumentation graphs and a lot of other different tools that you can use collaboratively. And the interest here is that you can replay the action. So if you record students here in this situation, they were collaboratively writing a text together and talking at a distance. And when you replay it, you can view the process. Because as a teacher, for example, as a researcher specifically, and also as a teacher, you don't really get to see the process. You judge the final product, but you don't see what the students did in order to get there. And that's what's quite interesting. So as a researcher, we can give insight on that process. Again, it goes back to what I was saying, what was important today, earlier, in what interests us. And so you can, now we have a more developed replayer. You can pause and go faster and slower and different things like that. So I think now we get to Tatiana.